Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 17 of the Listening Room Sonic Journeys. I'm your host, your groove guru, and your guide to the vibes, the cultural DJ. And it has been a little bit since the last episode. I hope you all are doing well. Life has been lifing for me quite a bit recently. I posted on the Cultural DJ Facebook page that not really taking a break, but that I wasn't going to post another or make another episode of the Listening Room Sonic Journeys until the first week of August. I just kind of needed a bit of time. And I realized, I also mentioned on the post that I was probably going to start making this show into a bi-weekly show. I came to realize that a lot of the research that I want to do for many of the topics that I want to tackle takes longer than a single week, especially with everything else going on between having a full-time job and then also having other projects I want to work on. And speaking of which, along with this show, I would also like to create other pieces of content for this channel, for specifically for YouTube, to be exclusive to the Cultural DJ YouTube channel. So it'll be stuff that's different from the stuff you'll find on like the TikTok or the Instagram or the Facebook page and everything. And it's going to be like different pieces of content that are kind of like an extension of this podcast, but it'll be me, it'll be long form content, it'll be videos and everything. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing in the future, and I realize that it's going to take longer than a single week to be able to really flesh out these episodes for this podcast in the way that I'd like to, where it won't be me like rushing or trying to put stuff together or cheaping out on certain things and doing episodes that I didn't really want to make as opposed to episodes that I really do want to make, and having topics that are more detailed and well researched and everything. So I'm probably looking at making this show a bi-weekly show as opposed to a weekly show. So I have a bit more time to kind of get my thoughts and notes together and actually plan out better episodes that are more detailed and better research and everything. If you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe. Like I said, new episodes will probably be coming out every other Thursday, bi-weekly show now. Be sure to check out the socials, the Cultural DJ Instagram, the Cultural DJ TikTok, and the Facebook page. The links for that will be in the description. Also, be sure to check out the Cultural DJ Substack for any articles that I write. That will be found in the description as well. So, getting into this episode, I wanted to kind of not recite, but like I guess read an article that I actually recently wrote and have recently published as well. You'll find it on the Cultural DJ Substack as I'm speaking this right now. I wrote it for a magazine. There was a magazine I was kind of writing for a brief period of time. I submitted it. I haven't heard back from them. It's an independent magazine, so it's kind of slow going. But I wanted to publish it regardless of whether or not they do accept it. I think it's a really great piece, and I wanted to kind of talk about it. It is talking about Prince and his single Sign of the Times for the album of the same name, Sign of the Times. And I titled the article Sign of the Times, Societal Snapshots by Prince. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the passages of the article. It's not a long article. It's only a few paragraphs, so nothing crazy. You're not reading a book, but I wanted to read some of the passages of the article and stop here and there to kind of expand on some of the things I'm talking about. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. I will let you all know when I stop and when I go back to reading. So, here we go. In the title track of Prince's seminal 1987 double album, Sign of the Times, Prince flips the archetypal pop single on its head, opting for social reportage, sparse production, and a verbal glimpse into the woes plaguing late 1980s society. So, Sign of the Times is a very bold... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm stopping here. Sign of the Times as a title is very bold as far as something for an album, and I'll get into this further as we go along, but This was kind of a new era for Prince. He had essentially dissolved the revolution and was starting new musical projects and bringing in new musical ideas. And he wanted to further touch, and he was no stranger to some of the more political things and some of the more socio-political and more conscious topics in his music, but this one kind of goes all in. So we're going to get back to the article. In France, a skinny man died of a big disease with a little name opens the title track, decisively setting the dismal tone for the remainder of the song. Prince delivers each verse's lyrics akin to a news headline reel, brief, dour, fleeting, forgoing any offering of solution or overtly biased commentary, instead allowing those headlines to tell a story all on their own. The aloofness within Prince's vocals almost suggests deep-rooted fatigue from the onslaught of global crises, made evident in his tapping of drug addiction, the AIDS epidemic, gang violence, natural disasters, poverty, and even more notable incidents such as the Challenger disaster. I'm going to stop there for a second. So one of the more interesting things about this song that I just touched on is that Prince doesn't really offer any kind of solution or any real opinion per se on all the stuff that he's talking about. And he goes over a lot of different topics on this track. He's talking about HIV/AIDS epidemic, which was running rampant in the 80s. He name checks the Gangster Disciples on the track and how there's gang violence going on. He talks about people dying of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and he talks about poverty and just all these terrible things. And of course, the Challenger disaster he talks about kind of touches on in the chorus, talking about, is it silly when a rocket ship explodes and everybody still wants to fly? That line for me really, really sticks out because, that's really kind of the only opinion he gives, I guess. But even then, it's all very vague. He's not really saying, well, maybe people just shouldn't fly, but he's also not saying that people should. And it goes to show that he is, and one of the things I put as the subtitle, I guess, of this article is "Crime and Drugs Besmirched the Neon Lights of the 80s, and Prince was the news anchor of it all." And a lot of what he talks about on this particular track comes off as maybe a news anchor who's just going from bullet point to bullet point to bullet point about all these different subjects, not really giving an opinion, but just reporting on these things. So we're going to move on with the article. The instrumentation only aids in accentuating the bleak theming within the tune. Unlike a great many of Prince's more lush, grandiose songs found on LPs only years prior, a minimalist approach dominates this track, with particular emphasis on his signature Linn LM1 drum machine. Amid a detached, repetitive drum pattern, restrained synths, and languid guitar flourishes, this opener stands in rather stark contrast to the remaining 15 tracks. Immediately following this tune is the bright frolic of Play in the Sunshine, not to be eclipsed by the brontosaurus funk of Housequake or the undeniable sensuality of later Slow Love and sacred reverence of The Cross. We're going to stop there for a second. That is also one of the other really interesting things about this particular track and how it relates to the rest of the album, because this track is really the only track like this one on the album. And I was thinking about it a while ago. It is really interesting. You would think that a lot of the album would revolve around this particular theming, some of the more dark aspects of society, because really, even though this is like the title track of the album, it really is kind of the centerpiece. You would think a lot of the theming and the concepts on this album would revolve around the ideas on this track about how there's all these terrible things happening throughout the world. But I mean, like right after, it's fun, and there's his usual his bedtime song, bedroom songs, I should say, not bedtime but bedroom songs, and is more funk and just joyous and all this. It's such a stark contrast from the first track. And ideally, you would think that this track would kind of set you up for more of this, for expansion on the theme of Sign of the Times, the track. But it kind of doesn't, because the thing about Sign of the Times is that it's a very diverse album, not just musically, but thematically. And that's one of the big positives for a lot of Prince fans and critics of this particular album, is just how diverse it is. And he goes through a lot of different styles of music on this album versus kind of the more, I guess, focus might not be the proper term to use, but some of the more focused musical ideas on previous albums, like I was saying, with the more grandiose production, you have albums like Purple Rain, which had all these like string arrangements, and it was more kind of psychedelic influenced, kind of that Paisley Underground influence there. And it was just the production was really grand and big and maximalist, versus this album where a lot of production is more on the minimal side, and this track especially is very minimal. And then you have tracks like the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, which is also very minimalist, and that's one of my favorite tracks in the album. So this album, and I was saying before that Prince was trying out some new ideas, and this track in particular really kind of sets that bar for some new ideas musically and thematically and lyrically that Prince wanted to kind of set the precedent for as he was moving away from what he did prior. So we're going to move on with the article. Coming off the dissolution of his band, The Revolution, the placement of Sign of the Times as the opening track suggests a profound creative departure from Prince's previous work, in that several of his past records would open with energetic and decidedly jubilant songs, such as In Love, I Want to Be Your Lover, Let's Go Crazy. While Prince is certainly no stranger to incorporating politically charged material into his albums, such as Ronnie Talk to Russia, this one stands as arguably his most lauded and revealing of his unassumingly solemn demeanor, particularly against his reputation of androgyny and frenetic pop superstardom. So I kind of reiterate a lot of stuff I just said on this particular. I'm stopping, by the way. I kind of reiterated a lot of the things I talked about prior to this particular paragraph about the dissolution of his band, The Revolution, and how this was kind of a creative departure from a lot of the stuff he did prior, and how he wasn't a stranger to incorporating the politically charged stuff on his records. But yeah, this one really kind of, there's really no ambiguity for this one. He really kind of goes all in with like, hey, this stuff is happening in the world. And even though he's not really giving a specific opinion that really kind of gives his take. I mean, you can kind of assume, I suppose, how he feels about it just based on the fact that he's making the song at all. But it really sets itself apart because it's noticeably darker in theme compared to some of the others, where he hasn't in past records talked about the idea of like all-out war or like the nuclear war and everything and just worldwide chaos. But this one is a little bit more honed in on these specific things that are happening in the world as opposed to like broad subjects. He's talking about the gang violence going on. He's talking about how AIDS and HIV are running rampant in communities all across the world and how it's killing people. Like he really goes all in on these topics, minus giving his opinion on it, really. So continuing on with the article, and this is actually the last paragraph, so we'll end it here. To open an album sprawling with eroticism, spirituality, and stylistic experimentation with a track as deliberately critical and scathing as this has helped elevate Sign of the Times to be among Prince's more fascinating records with fans and critics alike, citing this album as perhaps Prince's magnum opus as well as one of the greatest albums ever made, even above the lofty Purple Rain. Where Sign of the Times succeeded was in its ability to shift the pop single into a means of social political advertence, along with signaling a new creative era for Prince. And that is where the article ends. Like I was saying, I was kind of comparing the two, Sign of the Times and Purple Rain, and kind of the differences. And I think that should be maybe an episode I talk about, or I focus on at some point, because those are often the two albums that are regarded as like Prince's greatest albums. Like out of his entire discography, those are like the two that often stick out. So it might be worth kind of comparing those two, some of the similarities and many of the differences. But yes, a lot of fans and critics have considered Sign of the Times to be Prince's greatest work, just a total masterpiece for many people, even over Purple Rain. And one of the things I really kind of wanted to tackle with this particular article that it's one of like kind of the beta ideas I had for this one, was kind of detailing how this song helped to push the more, I guess, serious and social commentary type songs to the forefront of pop music. But to say that this was like the track that did it would be inaccurate, and I'd have to have other examples of other songs that did the same. While of course this song certainly helped it, it was not the only one, and I can't with full conscience give this track that credit. I'd have to pull other examples and go over those, and I really kind of wanted to focus specifically on Prince and this particular song. So that was one of the beta ideas, and I kind of switched it to be how this song kind of turned, it was more self-contained within Prince's canon of pop songs, and how he shifted gears coming into this new era creatively. So yeah, that is really the article. Prince would continue with all these different styles of music and concepts and ideas throughout the late 80s and early 90s. He would adopt a whole bunch of different styles of music and create, of course, the New Power Generation, which I personally believe is better than The Revolution. I prefer that band over The Revolution, and The Revolution is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the New Power Generation was really Prince's bread and butter when it came to having a backing band, because it allowed him to execute so many different ideas musically, and it gave him, I think, a bit more freedom when it came to how he developed his music, because he had more than just kind of the typical band with, the guitarist and the keyboardist. He had, horns and rappers and different vocalists and everything, and he was able to pull from so many different aspects, I should say different avenues of music. Because of this, he was able to make his music so much more diverse and altogether way more fascinating and interesting to listen to as a result. So that's kind of a topic for a different episode, the New Power Generation, because that would be fun to talk about. But yeah, I'm going to end it here. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing. It really would help build the channel. Be sure to check out the socials, the Cultural DJ TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Those will all be found in the description. And also check out the Cultural DJ Substack, where you can read this article for yourself, as well as any of the other articles that I have published or will publish in the future. That will be found in the description as well. Like I said at the beginning, I'm looking to do episodes every other week as much as possible. So please bear with me. I'm trying to get this together. I want to do it weekly, but it's just not, I don't think it's going to work out that way, unfortunately. So please bear with me as I'm kind of figuring all this out, and life is lifing. I'm doing my best, but I would love to have it be at the very least bi-weekly. So the next episode will be not this next week, but the week after next. But yeah, thank you all again so much for listening, and I will see you all next time. This is the Cultural DJ signing off.